Hey, cunts, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Even though I don't believe in what the kids call the program, I mean the millennials and younger, fake it till you make it. And I call it perception is reality. You know, if you look and act and sound like a financial wizard, there's a high probability that people will accept you as a financial wizard. Not fake it until you make it. But it's not dissimilar because you really don't know anything. Well, most of you don't. Anything about finance. Most of you haven't really done any deals to speak of, or if you did deals, you probably did bad deals. And you all pretty much have been taught that you need money in a deal, equity. And so you're faking it that you know for certain that what you're learning and what you're implementing and executing once you leave here is the real deal. So you are faking it. Although even though I don't like those words. But some people have, and the reason I bring up the issue because I was looking at some YouTube comments, which never ceases to amaze me, the fucking meatheads. They have a moral issue with faking it until you make it, meaning you're pretending to be something you're not. Some of the kids have a moral issue. That's not morally right. Letting people, drive, coming up, extreme example is driving up in a Rolls Royce with a chauffeur to the meetings, Well, most of you won't be doing that anyway, but we do have some kids that do that. And so they have a moral issue but what they're really doing is they're looking for an excuse why not to do it. They're looking for an excuse why to procrastinate, just as most people have done most of their careers. You can always come up with a reason. Now, when we're younger, if our parents said to do it, just by definition, we didn't want to do it because our parents said to do it. And that was, whereas my dad, who was an extremely stern disciplinarian, I didn't really have any choice because I was more afraid of getting caught not doing it and getting thumped by him. I've said this on YouTube before. I missed drugs for some reason, and I was in the generation where they did that shit all the time, especially from where I came from. But during that bonding period, remember that my dad for 15 months, something like he someplace, somewhere, you should try to bond with your son. Well, he sat me down. In addition to the birds and the bees talk he gave me in about a minute, he sat me down in the same living room, the same chair, and he went into his bedroom and he came out with his 8-inch 38 caliber revolver, Smith & Wesson, and he put it to my head, loaded with a hammer cocked back. I can still close my eyes. I can still see the heads of the bullets. And he said, there's only one cure for a motherfucking drug addict, and it's a motherfucking bullet in your head, and I'm the motherfucker that'll put it there. With a thing pressed up against my temple. And my mother, again, off camera, screaming and yelling, Manny, you might pull the trigger by accident, you might pull the trigger by accident. And he said, I won't pull the trigger by accident, I'll pull it on fucking purpose. Well, somehow I never did drugs, because with all my heart, I knew my dad would blow my brains out. I knew it, just like I brushed my teeth. I knew. So I never did drugs. And the 2 or 3 of my best buddies around me never did drugs, because they were afraid of my dad. Anybody that was smart in the neighborhood was afraid of my dad. And he carried a gun. And in those days, cops could do whatever the fuck they wanted. In 1966, when the Miranda Act was passed on a national level, meaning you've got rights. You've got a right to remain silent. You've got, that bullshit that the cops tell you when they arrest you. Well, you don't know that, but anyway, like in the movies when they say you got a right to. Well, pre-Miranda, there were no rights, and God knows cops did a lot of shit. Not just to minorities, but they just, they were like gunslingers on the street. They could do whatever the fuck they wanted, whenever the fuck they wanted, and there was very little bad that happened to them. So when my dad did that to me, I believed. But the point is the kids will look for anything to come up with a reason why not to do a lot of the stuff. Some of you, a couple of you are numerate. In other words, you have a history of being good with numbers, or you've been involved with numbers. When we listened to Andreas yesterday, he's numerate. He's a financial, not wizard, but he's a financial expert. But he's not this. And he said more than once, I suck, my skills were shit, and you heard all that. Well, some of you, that will be the speed bump to me, but the Mount Everest to you to get over, to force yourself to do this. Because you've already convinced yourself either you don't have any sales skills, or really what you're saying is you don't have any interpersonal skills. 2 or 3 of you in here are obnoxious as human beings. And they're mostly Germanic. That's just the way it is. They have an arrogance, notwithstanding they lost all the wars, but they have an arrogance about them. But that's what makes them good for QLA. Because you don't have to be loved to get QLA done. You don't have to even be liked. All you have to be is tolerated. Does everybody verstehen that? Tolerated. That they don't spit on you or slap you. Which is the opposite of how most of you, for those of you that are in sales, how in the fuck could I get through my sales career? Well, nobody ever fucking loved me. And I was a selling motherfucker. But I even knew as a kid, sales are numbers. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And just like Andrea said, 1,613 calls. And as long as they just tolerate you. And I've never said this before, but it might even be a kind of a measuring stick. If they start to like you, you're fucking up. Now, that's never my challenge. And I probably should feel bad about it, but it's got me where I am, so I know I don't feel bad about it. But getting you to do that is something different. And that's one of the challenges. And it's beyond self-esteem. Self-esteem is another issue. You can make this program work for you with little or no self-esteem. You can make this program work for you with little or no self-confidence. And there's not many programs in martial arts. I mean, you gotta trust your skills. And in this program, you need to have faith first in the program that it works, and there's no question that the program doesn't work. We've had so many successes, but that doesn't mean that you can do it in your own mind. I know you can do it. I know what you're capable of. I've seen little mice that roared. There used to be a play on Broadway, The Mouse That Roared. Well, I've seen you guys. We're going to see a couple of them today on the webinars. Little nebbish guys that you'd think, have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. But they trusted the program, and over time, they trusted themselves. One of the reasons it takes longer is it takes you longer to really believe that you can do it. Because having all these guys, even the guys that are, little nebbishes that do it, doesn't mean you can do it. And then that's why the system is built up in a layered system. First, somebody asked, I get emails all the time, or Kat gets more emails than I do, about, I don't know where to start. Well, a couple of years ago, we put QLA for Dummies together, which tells you the foundation. Some of you have gone through it. And then after you go through that, then you still write, I don't know where to start. It's because you shouldn't start. We don't put that on the website. If you go through QLA for Dummies and you still don't know where to start, and make sure that you stick it in the roof of your mouth so it doesn't slip out. Because we've had people blow the sides of their face off because literally, I'm not bullshitting. If you can't even put the gun in your mouth and pull the fucking trigger right, how are you going to fucking convince a motivated self? Means you can't do anything right. But the kids are looking for a reason, an excuse. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to have self-esteem to do this. You don't have to have self-confidence. The only thing you've got to do is, since there have been so many tens of thousands of people that have made the system work, there's a high probability, even though you're a numbnuts, meathead, you can make the system work. And all you have to have is faith in the first step. The first step is, what area are you going to be? And finding a chairman we call anchor. That's it. And then by the time you get down to the accountants and the lawyers, you've made 50, 60, 70 presentations, and you're not smooth like I'm smooth, but you're pretty fucking smooth. And remember, your communication skills only have to be 5% of mine. 5%. I don't have any mentees that their communication's even 20% of mine. Yet they've all got a lot of money. Not all. But. And, what do you remember from last night? What are you afraid of? Don't everybody jump at once. Yes, sir, in the back.
My uncle got hit on the head and got a bleeding in the brain.
And you bled?
No, I was afraid.
Somebody hit him and you bled, okay.
So I was afraid that the same will happen to me. So seeing myself...
Well, being around you for a while, I'm sure there's some people in this room that want to hit you in the head.
Yeah, that's okay. But seeing myself getting unconscious on the boxing ring and nothing happened was just worth the whole trip.
Seeing you unconscious, I thought was pretty funny myself, but that's just my personality. But we've had some people not much more seriously hurt or hit than you were, and they seemed to rally. We had nobody die in the boxing ring yet, and I hope that we don't ever have that. So that's what your fear. Who else? Yes, sir.
I'm afraid of never matching my predisposition for success with my results, with my given results.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand this. Explain that a little more.
I'm afraid of the potential or capabilities I know I can.
You mean not fulfilling the potential? Man's greatest burden is unfulfilled potential. Costa Gracias told me that. Somebody else, some philosophers, I think some Greek philosopher might have said it. But Gracias, when I was with Onassis, man's greatest burden is unfulfilled potential, Mr. Peña. Okay? And he says we all die unfulfilled because we never fulfill our potential. Maybe I'm operating at 50, 60% of my potential. I don't know what the number is. But I'm certainly not operating at 100. But I'm also not operating at 5. So we're afraid of it. And that's why I say most people, not all, but most people are more afraid of success than they are of failure. Because once you're successful, then are you going to be a one-trick fuck like Steve that you heard last night, or are you going to be a 2 or 3 trick fuck? In other words, are you going to be able to do 2 or 3 successful things? I would be satisfied that all my birthdays came at once for you just to be a 1-trick fuck. I will add you to my prayer list. I just want 1 out of you. I don't need 2 or 3, successes. Just 1. Because once you have that success under your belt, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then you judge yourself not against the guys and gals that you've heard on the webinar or that you hear me talk about. Then you judge yourself against yourself. Well, fuck, I did it. Why can't I do it again? And you will do it again. And who else? Afraid? Yes, sir.
I'm afraid of being conned.
Conned? Is that C-U-N-T? Conned? Oh, you mean cheated?
I don't trust people.
You don't trust people? Well, that's an African trait. But even though there's a lot of things I don't worry about because I know that no matter, even if I get conned, it's not going to be a bullet below the waterline, meaning to sink me or to sink whatever I'm involved in. Almost all not all, but almost all the threats that you're going to receive are not going to be life-threatening. I mean, put you out of business, take your life. They're minor skirmishes. But if you haven't been in minor skirmishes, like if you haven't been in schoolyard fights, ever, you don't know that you're not going to be, when you get knocked out. I've been knocked out a lot of times, hit with bricks. And we have a Hall of Famer up there that before he dies, he wants to be in a barroom brawl. In a bar, like you see when they're hitting you with bar stools and shit like that. And he makes this guy look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, this other guy I'm talking about up there. And Bill, and I have been, and just because the bar stool breaks over your back in the movies, it doesn't crack because it's not made out of balsa wood. You go down like a ton of shit when they hit you with a chair. And I said that you would not live or survive a ballroom ball. I mean, a real one but that's it, that's his goal. That's what he wants to do. He's got hands about this big. His legs are about as big as my wrists, Yeah, I mean, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, which is true. But it's, getting whipped or getting beat mentally or financially, although it makes us stronger, it's a bitch. I mean, and the more successful you get, if you don't do it right, the more you worry about losing what you have. Because, your friends, your family, you're going to they think, well, I got here by accident. I got here because I went to the QLA seminar. I got here because it was the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years. I got here because we were in the 11th year of a bull market. Well, it doesn't make a shit why you got there. Because you can say those things no matter where you are in the economic cycle. But the fact is that you gathered your forces and you move forward. Now, all of you won't run towards the gunfire at a sprint. But as long as you are moving towards the gunfire, in other words, moving down towards the end of where the goal line is, you can see that. And when we finish talking about the weekly reports, the section we're on now is cold calling. You can forget the whole rest of the report. Everything we've talked about already and everything we're going to talk about after. If you perform, or when you perform on cold calling, it makes it for a lot of mistakes. It makes it for a lot of mistakes. I remember when I sold insurance door to door. Humbling experience. Humbling. And it's not just the door getting slammed in your face. I mean, okay, but occasionally when you're trying to get your foot in the door and they slam it, and there's various techniques, and I always took the most aggressive approach, as you can probably imagine. But it was a humbling experience selling insurance. Humbling experience. But I got good. I got really good. And especially when you sell insurance on a 100% commission basis only, no salary, no draw against commission. If you didn't sell something, well, a little bit of an exaggeration, you didn't eat. And when I was doing it door to door, I didn't have a family, so I wasn't worried. I was just worried about me eating. More importantly, I was worried about me being able to drink, because alcohol cost me more than my food when I was young. You can live on almost a pure diet of alcohol. You can. I'm living proof. You can. Every once in a while, I'd have a steak sandwich every third or fourth day. But I would, drink Bloody Marys in the morning to get, after I ran around when I was living in New York. Okay, another fear. Yes, sir.
Not creating a legacy?
Okay. Most people that start out young aren't worried about their legacy. Okay? But as you get older and as you start to run out of runway, meaning, time catches all of us. Even I will pass from this earth someday. Not anytime soon, but you worry about that. And what I worried about, and I don't believe I was afraid of it, but maybe you can define it as being afraid, is what my kids would think of my legacy. What did I do? Like one of the questions I asked the university students, what are you going to tell your kids and grandkids during the greatest transformation of wealth? What the fuck were you doing other than having your thumb up your ass? we are experiencing the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the planet. Most people that I speak in front of, including these seminars, either didn't take advantage of the bull market or made money in the bull market, but it's not transformational, the money they made. Even if you doubled or tripled your money in the last 11 years, it's probably not enough for you to retire on. Now, that's a combination of one, the interest rates are so low. But what did you accomplish? What are you going to tell your kids? When your grandson comes up to you when he's 13 or 14 years old and he's in junior high school, hey, Grandpa, what did you do during the big transformation of wealth back in the day? Nothing. As you're sitting in, this is an exaggeration, as you're sitting in your 600 square foot little retirement home with drool running down your face like this, and you won't have enough money for a nurse to wipe it off, what are you going to do? What would you do today? Fast forward. If your kids are old enough, Daddy, what have you done the last 10 years? What would you tell them? Go turn the news on TV or go to, But as you get older, you start thinking about that stuff. What else? Let's jump to Steve Ballmer. Steve, alpha male, energetic, aggressive, enthusiastic, right? Extremely successful. It's the first time, and he even said he was nervous, if I remember correctly, and he said that, because I know it's going to be on YouTube forever, it's the first time I've ever heard of him speaking without saying the F word. That's his favorite word as well. Takeaways about Steve. Yes, in the back.
He was a salesman, and he had no fucking idea about coding and all the other stuff. No idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can relate to that because I'm a salesman that had taken my skills from selling door-to-door insurance to selling governments. Same skill sets, slightly more polished, but salesmen are people that get you to do what they want you to do when they want it. And that's what a salesman is. And Steve is a preeminent one, and he is not embarrassed to say he doesn't know much about, if anything, about how the products for Microsoft functioned. But he knew you had to sell them. You knew you had to sell them. And when you look in hindsight, Gates picked the right guy. Just because he went, and he dropped out of grad school, if I remember correctly, to go join, the 8th or 15th employee, whatever it was. He picked the right guy. Yes, sir.
And without being an SME, he managed well, knowing how to ask the right questions and look at the market.
Yeah. Well, if you go through any basic sales regimen, you learn how to ask questions. And then in Microsoft, of all those big companies, was very sales oriented. Siemens wasn't. As I said, there's a right way, a wrong way, and a Siemens way. They've been, when I was there, they had been around 148 years, about that time. And they were, like many of the big, huge German companies, were institutions like governments. And they had been through all the wars. But when you check the film clips of, when they go into Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and if you look carefully, the ovens, a lot of them were made by Siemens. And Siemens is trying to clean that up over the years, trying to get those off of History Channel, etc. But they've been up and down. They've been, around. Anybody that's been in business for 100 years has seen the cycles. And one of the things that Siemens should have been afraid of or worried about, but they weren't, partially through their German arrogance, was that they could ever be overcome or overtaken in their professional expertise. Their big nemesis was General Electric. And I am sure that the Siemens executives are laughing their fucking ass off about the plights of General Electric over the last few years and how they've lost money. But sometimes you're not smart enough to know what you should be afraid of. And that was me. When I was at Harvard many years ago, they said, Mr. Peña, what do you attribute your success to? Brains or balls? And I said, wrongfully, I said at that time 50-50. 50% brains, 50% balls. Now I say 90-10. 90% balls, 10% brains. They used to say Peña is 1/3 fool, 2/3 not smart enough to know. Because a lot of the things I did against the grain were impossible. Because nobody told me that you can't do these things. I thought when I first got into the energy business, I only thought, I didn't know that dry holes were a reality. I didn't know that was, most of the holes that are dry. They're dusters, as they call them. And by smart and some serendipity, I had the father of the North Sea on my board, Bob Dyke. He drilled 88 dry holes in the North Sea, and the 89th was Argyle Field. And that tax income from that discovery of the North Sea saved Mrs. Thatcher from being bankrupt in the UK. So when I had him on the board, and all the institutional investors are saying, what about this on our drilling program? And then I just defer to Bob, which he went from dry hole Dyke to the grand old man of the North Sea in one day. And I said, Mr. Dyke, what do you think? He got knighted for it on top of it. He said that I've never met a man with more integrity in the oil business than Mr. Peña. He wouldn't really answer the question. He would just say, I've never met a man with more integrity. Didn't say whether we were going to make a well or not. And that's all they had to say. And they just shake their head up and down. And I believe that was the only thing he ever did while I was on the board. To the best of my knowledge, he answered one question at one big institutional presentation. In 9/1, Governor Carey, the former governor of New York, and that's what these guys do, made one phone call to the president of Citibank, Walter Wriston, when we were having trouble getting the finance. One phone call. But that's all it takes from these kind of guys. That's all it takes. And they're not making the cold calls. I'm not sure Governor Carey or Robert Dyke even knew what a cold call was. But once you attain some success, you know, they're more readily in a position to open up their contact list to you. What else about Balmer? Yes, sir.
What gets measured gets accomplished. He tracks his time, his times. He has to track his times.
Elon Musk and Bill Gates share something. Their calendar, their diaries are broken up into 5-minute increments. Their meetings are no longer than 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. Most, myself included, I have trouble saying good morning in 5 minutes, let alone presenting an idea in a cogent manner that you want them to take a positive result, in other words, selling them. 5 minutes. And when you're tracking the time, you'll see that those 45-minute phone calls to your mother don't stack up too highly. What else about Balmer? Yes, sir, in the back.
He didn't fight innovation or change. They encouraged it.
Well, you can, or not you can, you should. But everybody talks about change, but when change comes to you changing, then you're not as enthusiastic. Yes, sir.
He didn't come out as an asshole like the others, but so I was a little surprised because I knew that Balmer was very, very tough and very, very hard, but not in that video.
Okay, there were some slides that we didn't go through yesterday because I didn't think you needed them, but him being in court and the testimony from the employees, him throwing employees, desks, and computers. Employees, desks, and computers.
Why not?
Well, he tried to throw them out the window. Steve, I don't know anything about Steve ever trying to throw anybody other than computers at coders all the time. These guys, I fell victim to this. You want to judge them by the highest standards, and normally the highest standards around are yours, okay? And if they can't do the tasks in more or less the same time frame, you get not disappointed, you get pissed off. And a lot of people were being hired away from Microsoft 20 years ago to go to Google 15 years ago. And Ballmer took it personally, them going to Google. And he would go off on tirades. But most of the guys, the slide that we didn't go through, every third or fourth word from Mr. Musk is fuck. He says it's very expressive. Everybody understands. Fuck you. No, we're not fucking doing that. You don't have to explain. Yet in today's world, you talk like that. Another slide we didn't go through that 8 out of 10 people cry at work weekly. 8 out of 10 cry at work. Now, they may go cry in the men's room or the ladies' room where nobody's seeing, or find a closet. But I can just imagine, and I asked our children that work in the big corporate world, and they said, I don't know, I didn't think it was that high, but yeah. Managers get reputations in sales meetings and calling people out for making them accountable. They'll just bust out in tears. And I'm not talking about real men don't cry, that bullshit. But what happened to your fucking sales quota? You told me that 3 weeks ago. And then that's just the warm-up. I guess you must not need this fucking job. Well, one more result like that, and don't worry about it. You won't be working here. And if human resource had been around when I was around, they would have been all over my case every fucking day. Every fucking day. Because, the only thing that I accept are results, death or coma. Results, death or coma. That's it. We have clips of guys doing the Zoom call while their wife is giving birth. And push, honey, yeah, Mr. Peña, push, honey. We have a lady from a Zoom call. She's in intensive care, dying on a Zoom call. And unfortunately, we've had people die in comas. But when you're dealing with this many people over this many years, it's not surprising that some of the people have left this planet. Anything else about Steve?
He's a good leader. He's a really good leader.
His leadership skills are extraordinary. But he's one of the few, and he's not in the corporate world anymore. He's the owner of a professional basketball team, amongst other things. But he's one of the few guys that's an alpha male that was in senior management. There just aren't that many. And that makes it better for everybody else. Pardon?
How do you distinguish that? So you said Klaus Kleinfeld is not an alpha male?
He's not. He's not an alpha male. But you don't have to be an alpha male. But Klaus Kleinfeld is an assassin, but he's not an alpha male. He's an assassin. He's just, there are not that many alpha males in German business. At the smaller, not at the big level, but at the smaller guys that own a $50, $100 million company, they got alpha males running around. But it's tougher to become be an alpha male and climb the corporate ladder in the corporate world now, because there's always somebody that's is going to be an obstruction. But Klaus is a implementer and executor, and when I say executor, he would be the guy that the guy that hangs you and he has a black hood over his head, or he chops your head off in the movies. That's Klaus. Klaus wouldn't shudder, batter, a heartbeat if he had to execute you. Although he would do it that, that I don't really want to be here and do this to you, and but the way things have worked out, those kind of guys. Yeah. I'm not that guy. I'm so happy I'm going to get you fucking cut your throat. I mean, let's take a selfie. Let's take a selfie. Anything else about Steve? Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was interesting that he said he was shy at school.
Yeah.
But then practiced.
Yeah.
You didn't take failure as an option?
Pardon?
You didn't take failure as
No, I mean, like the Apollo 13, failure is not an option. And in today's world, failure is accepted too readily. When our kids just happened to, when they started having just ribbons for participation instead of win-lose in baseball, Little League, and football games, our kids were and we took them out of that those sports because I wanted them to learn to win, not to get a participation ribbon. But right now now if you get in the Little League, which is junior baseball in America, if you get more than 7 or 8 runs ahead, they call the game. Well, I've seen teams make up 7 or 8 fucking runs and still win. Why? How do they learn to make up those 7 or 8 runs if they stop the goddamn game? You had a question.
Yeah, he mentioned about 3 or 4 times, pay attention to account.
Yeah.
Pay attention to account.
Management account.
Yeah, the numbers. Now, he knew the numbers backwards and forwards. He didn't know how the products worked. But
management accounting was more important than financial accounting.
Yeah, that's correct. Management accounting is keeping people accountable, division by division. When I used to run big sales organizations, I used to come in. I didn't say how many sales we made yesterday or last week. How many sales have we made this morning? And today you can check sales on the hour or instantaneously. On the hour instantaneously. And now I know they have flex time now, and they have this, you work at home and all that shit. But I'm a manager that only allows that if I've seen them perform in the office first. Flex your ass. Come back in 90 days, and after you've met all your quotas and exceeded all your quotas, then we'll talk about you working from home. That's fine. Once they've proved to you that they can perform. And of course, that's considered verboten now. Everybody should have the opportunity. And of course, now guys can take off when their wife has a baby. See, that's foreign to me. I don't get that. But I also don't get, we're pregnant. I don't get that at all. I just don't. And I know that I'm way out of sync with most of the world about that. But that's unbelievable. Okay, thank you, YouTube.